All right, that is California Breeds Midnight Oil here on Ramble On Radio. I say, what ho, this is Brian. Call me Achilles Gardner, coming to you from Ramble On Towers Dungeon Studio in scenic Hespeler, Ontario. You are listening to Ramble On Radio, episode 54. Ramble On Radio is the only dedicated podcast on this or any other known internets. Be sure to go to rambleonradio.com for all your Led Zeppelin news and any links I might mention during the show. You can subscribe to Ramble On Radio through iTunes, and if you go to iTunes, just give it a couple of stars, whatever you need, rate it, leave a little review. It doesn't have to be a big deal, just 3 words. You could say hate it, love it, or anything kind of in between, and that'll work. It helps identify to iTunes as a podcast that people are listening to and feel fairly strongly about. And that helps it get in front of other people when it comes up higher on their searches. And so if you get enough reviews, it can wind up in the in their charts and stuff. So just puts it in front of more people. Same goes for you. You can listen on Spreaker. That's Spreaker, Spreaker. Spreaker.com, and be sure to follow Ramble On Radio, and by doing so, again, it kind of bumps up into different areas and puts it in front of more people. Check out I Am Brian Dammit on YouTube. Follow Ramble On Radio on Facebook. We have a Facebook page on Google+, and at Ramble On Blog on Twitter. That was the drum intro from Midnight Oil by California Breed. Today they put out a video for that. They put the video on YouTube, so I figure I can steal it off YouTube and put it on, right? Probably the best song on the album, by the way. But it's a good one. It's a good one. Not nuts on that drum sound. Like drumming is good, but there's it's kind of a hollow sounding drum sound. It's not a hollow sound. Maybe it's I don't know. That's not a good John Bonham drum sound. Good, thick, ambient sound to my mind. But that's a production issue, not a drumming issue. Anyway, Achilles. I said Achilles. Why Achilles? I'll tell you why. Because it's an April morning, and they told us we should go. So here it is, April, not the morning. I'm not going anywhere, but the snow is melting. The snow is going. That's all we really care about, right? It's mostly gone. Spring is in the air. Tomorrow they're actually talking 17 degrees, which is up in the 60s to you Fahrenheit people. I actually got off the treadmill this week and had to run on the sidewalk. Went outside and ran instead of in the basement. I hurt myself badly because I had the Led Zeppelin DVD on in front of me all the while. But I get used to it as the summer goes along. No, don't do that. That's dangerous. I don't do that. During the winter, right, I get on the treadmill and I put on the DVDs, the music. I keep the music DVDs in the back of the basement where I watch them when I work out, when I'm exercising. Obviously, it's just listening to music when I'm running outside. And I actually have hopes that tomorrow, maybe Friday, I'm getting out on the bike for an hour, which would be the dog too. The dogs barks a lot in this podcast. The dog's happy to note walks are back. That she's actually getting up for walks, so that's good. And listen, they're not all. They can't all be gems. Let's put it that way. I wasn't happy last week. I wasn't happy with the podcast last week. I mentioned that it was a rainy day. I was looking out of the rain, and I think I was feeling a bit melancholy, and I wasn't pleased. And I almost did something I have never done before. I almost canned a fully produced podcast. It was ready to go. It was late anyway. It was Friday. There was no way I was getting another one done. I was just too busy. It was Friday before I got it done. Either Thursday night or something. And I crammed it in between getting home from work and making dinner for the family. And I was displeased on a couple of fronts, and I almost canned it. I almost canned it for no other reason than I forgot to mention a couple of things. So this week's episode, I actually have a pile of stuff this week. So there's not a theme this week. We're going to run those stories that I missed. I missed 2 weeks ago. I missed a story, and I was going to repeat it last week, and I missed it again. So it's going to get talked about this week. Small stories, small stuff, but hey, like even Led Zeppelin's produced some subpar stuff, right? Have they? what would you consider their weakest stuff? What would you consider their subpar? Their stuff that maybe Jamaica, Carousel Alhambra. That would be maybe my choices. What is the weakest moment? And so maybe that's an episode. It's gonna be an episode one day. What's the weakest moment in Led Zeppelin history? I guess the guys would probably tell you if you got a chance to ask them. Living Loving Maid is one they've never liked, but I have time for it. Jamaica, I think as much as anything, I'm sick of Jamaica. It's not that good a song. It's an okay song, and it gets played to death. I've talked about Carousel Alhambra last week. It does nothing for me. It just feels like a complete miss. I don't know if there's too many more. There's not too much you would call weak, is there? Anyway, let's get back. Let's get back to last week. I must say, let me see. I've written this down and then I've got off my writing. So we're going to cover a lot of ground anyway. Yes, we're going to cover a lot of ground. And if there's time at the end, maybe I'll get into this least favorite song thing. But I don't think, as the week has gone on, lots of little stories have gotten added. There's a busy, busy week. And as I mentioned before, I don't want to run into the 50, 60 minute range too often anyway. Certainly when it's just me talking, I don't want to get doing that. So let's get on to it though. So I missed, in the 2 weeks, each week I have missed a beautiful segue. This is what really hurts. Not that I missed, I forgot to mention that story, but that I had a segue lined up, an accidental one both times, lined up, set up, teed up on the tee, had the bat on my shoulder, and I whiffed. 2 weeks ago I just casually, off the top of my head, mentioned that I was wearing a basketball t-shirt from, oh darn, I forget. But they were undefeated going into the NCAA tournament and lost to Kansas the day before, or the weekend before I recorded. This was 2 weeks ago. And I made a crack about wearing that shirt. And, that suddenly they lose as soon as I get this shirt. Wichita, the Wichita Hornets, I think it is, right? University of Missouri Hornets. For those of you who don't follow college basketball, I'm sorry. So anyway, and then I mentioned, I made a joke about being a Leaf fan, and the Leafs were in absolute free fall. And if you don't follow hockey, or if you're over in Europe and don't get one of the most spectacular crash and burns of a sports team I have ever seen, I'm a Leaf fan, and it's been entertaining to watch. It's just been so spectacular a crash. But anyway, the night before I recorded that podcast, they had played the St. Louis Blues. They had lost to the St. Louis Blues, as they were losing to everybody at that point in time. And St. Louis Blues goaltender Ryan Miller, a couple of weeks before that, had been traded from Buffalo to St. Louis, and he had just the week before showed his new mask. And for the Europeans or whatever, the goalies wear these masks that are, I'm guessing, fiberglass or some sort of hard new kind of plastic, but they're molded to their face, and they cover the whole face, and then they have like a plate that straps onto the back, so it covers them, and then they get them painted. Usually team colors, usually it's something to do with the team and the goalie's personality. And Ryan Miller got with the St. Louis Blues. He had a big music note in the middle of his helmet, and then he got two blues guitars painted on it. One of them was Jimi Hendrix's White Stratocaster. The other was Jimmy Page's No. 1 Les Paul. Painted on the side, on the right side of his mask, is the Jimmy Page Les Paul. So, I had seen it the night before, and I forgot. So I had the segue lined up. And actually, thinking about that segue, thinking about going with that story. If Dave Lewis I was going to try and throw it at him, just to kind of get him off his game a little bit, just to not make him uncomfortable, but to start the interview off talking about something that he probably had no idea about. So get the conversation rolling in a different direction than he's used to, and hopefully create a more interesting conversation. So that's, and I had a segue for him if that came to that, because the mask is the music note of the mask. The team St. Louis Blues comes from a movie. I think the song is called St. Louis Blues. I think it's Meet Me in St. Louis is the movie. I could be off on this, but it's a Judy Garland movie, and of course, he talks about in his Nebworth book, which is one of the reasons I wanted to have him on. In 1979, July 23rd, 24th, 79, they play in Copenhagen at this theater that had featured, and he mentions in the book, in the past, people such as Judy Garland was one of them. So I was going to roll that segue into his book. But anyway, it's also reminiscent, though, of a couple of years back, Brent Johnson played for the Pittsburgh Penguins, and he had 4 or 5 Led Zeppelin goalie masks. I talked about him here, and I definitely, if you search Brent Johnson on rambleonradio.com, you will see pictures of those masks. And I haven't done any story on Ryan Miller yet. They're heading into the playoffs and looking like they could be an interesting team. So I'm going to hold my breath and hope they get far in the playoffs, and something will come up that'll make a story worth writing. Not just the mask, maybe he has a phenomenal game, or they go out and, win the Stanley Cup, or they go out in spectacular fashion, or something happens, hopefully, that'll create a story that'll make it worth talking about his mask more. But anyway, so I missed that segue completely, and it was such a beauty. And then last week I mentioned Robert Plant's playing Glastonbury. June 28th is the date. I didn't know the date. And I absolutely just blew right past the story that Glastonbury boss Michael Eacis says, and that Led Zeppelin will reform. Will, not should, may, possibly, probably, I think. Led Zeppelin will reform. Led Zeppelin will play Glastonbury one day. Again, not I think, not maybe, not we hope. Will reform, will play Glastonbury. And my response to that is Michael Eacis will get carried away to the nut house one day. He's nuts. They're not reforming. They're not playing Glastonbury. Jimmy Page is 70 years old. And if your parents are there, or you've dealt with people at that age, guys slow down. People slow down. Not guys. Women too slow down big time after 70. It's just very hard to maintain any kind of that kind of excellence after 70. I just don't see Jimmy Page, and he's not like he's been playing regularly for the last 20 years. I don't see him getting out of bed saying, I'm going to get my game in shape and getting up to Led Zeppelin shape at any point anymore. I just don't see that happening at 70 years old. It would have to, it would have to happen in the next couple of years. Let's put it that more bluntly that way. It would have to happen. It's not happening this year, so it would have to be next year, the year after. It's not happening after. It's just not happening. They're not reforming. I don't like to say that. This podcast started as a blog. The blog started as a Led Zeppelin reunion blog. That's my thing. It's not happening. It's not happening. If you're Robert Plant, why would you do it? I mean, in 94, when he went back with Jimmy, you're thinking of long-term career. You're thinking, okay, I'm in a bit of a lull in my own career. This will spark things. What does he care about that? He's 65 years old. What does he care about sparking his career? What does he care about? He obviously doesn't really want to do it. And why would a guy in Robert Plant's position, at Robert Plant's age, do anything he doesn't really want to do? And it's not happening. It's just not happening. Sorry, guys, it's not. Michael Eacis, you're nuts. It's not going to happen. This is what Robert Plant does want to do. Robert Plant played a church charity show in Nordleeds Church in the Cotswolds Friday. Cotswolds is a gorgeous part of the world, by the way. Beautiful, beautiful old England area. He played with Steve Winwood. I don't know what the charity is for. I don't know much on it. There's some very dark YouTube videos. Particularly, they played Wade in the Water and Nobody's Fault But Mine. Slowed down, not the Led Zeppelin version, more the Page and Plant version of Nobody's Fault But Mine, instead of the Led Zeppelin version. Wade in the Water there's another singer, a female singer in there. But it's just a nice little charity gig at this church. He showed up, was unexpected, unannounced, and it was done. And it looks like it was a fairly small church, to be honest. It looks like a fairly small stage they're on. And that's the sort of stuff Robert Plant's doing these days. He's also, by the way, and we have it on Ramble On Radio. I have it on Ramble On Radio. A video, kind of a little promo video for his upcoming tour. He is touring with the Sensational Space Shifters this summer. And they did kind of a little promo video. I don't know what else you would call it. Meanwhile, he's been seen around town a bit. He was at the Wolverhampton Wanderers football game. He had his picture taken with Christopher Amoruso, who put out that book Shades of Elvis we talked about. Pictures of various celebrities in Elvis Presley's sunglasses. And Robert Plant is one of the celebrities. So he got his copy of the book signed by Christopher Amoruso and had his picture taken with him. And he was also at a show in Shrewsbury by Catherine Williams, and I don't know her stuff. So, poor Jimmy Page. Jimmy's been out and about, and so the pictures are popping up on Twitter of Jimmy Page shopping at Whole Foods. I bet you didn't know Jimmy Page actually had to eat, right? He did go to the Deep Purple concert at Royal Albert Hall, which was a John Lord tribute, and took a train ride. His picture was taken on a train ride. Just sitting on the train, kind of smiling. The poor guy. Now, I don't, on my blog, I don't post these pictures. I have no real interest in Jimmy at Whole Foods, Jimmy on a train ride, unless I was with him, or unless the concert's a more interesting thing because it's a musical. But even then, he's just at a concert. He's just gone out for the night. But I do find, that said, I do find when these things start popping up, Jimmy Page starts popping up in other ways too. That means, like, he seems to not be in the public eye at all. We hear or see nothing from him for 3 or 4 or 5, 6 months, and then all of a sudden there'll be this. He's here out and he's doing this. He's out and he's doing that. There's pictures of him here. There's pictures of him there. There's pictures of him everywhere, and so this is kind of the Donovan concert comes up and he's there playing, playing with the Foo Fighters. He seems to. Even things like the remasters, when the remasters were announced back a year and a half ago now, there was a sudden burst of Jimmy Page activity that seemed not related to anything. Then all of a sudden we heard he was doing the remasters. So he's kind of, it almost seems like he's a bit of a hermit, and then he gets in moods to leave the house. And when he does, often professional activity gets involved in that. So I don't ignore these Jimmy Page, but I'm not big on it either. I think the guy should be able to take a train ride without everybody taking his picture and firing it all over Twitter. But like I say, it does sometimes indicate that other stuff is happening. Another rumor, though, there's a rumor that Jimmy Page is no longer with his manager, Peter Mensch. This is a quote from Led Zeppelin News that he is currently in between managers. That's Led Zeppelin News is on Twitter at Led Zepp News. If you're on Twitter, you got to follow him. Follow him. James Cook is the guy's name. They're great. He's great. He covers it, but he's the guy who's got all the pictures up. By the way, he retweets pictures and posts pictures of people. Send them, I guess. And frankly, that's what Twitter's excellent for. As a blog, it's not. And obviously a podcast is lousy for showing pictures. But, kind of as a blog, it's not. You're really writing stories more than anything. With Twitter, he's excellent at getting news fast. Bang, bang, bang. Quick story. Jimmy Page did X, Y, Z. Jimmy Page at Whole Foods. X, Y, boom, boom, boom. And he can get it off there in a few seconds. And he does it really great for following what's going on with Led Zeppelin. He's quick on stuff. He's got some contacts. He's not just He's not just regurgitating content, he is creating content as well. And often the very first person on a story, mostly because he's kind of seems to be he has his phone, because he's doing Twitter and he's got his phone beside him. I see a story and I'm at work. Well, it's 8 hours away from getting on the blog at least. Whereas he can tweet it in a matter of minutes, right? So Twitter does have its advantages, and that's one of them. And James does an excellent job. So Led Zepp News, at Led Zepp News, for them. There's a new music device coming out called Pono. Neil Young's heavily involved in this, and it's supposed to be, what it is high quality digital files. So it's like an MP3 player, but it plays, the audiophile geeks complain about the quality of MP3s. MP3s sound lousy. MP3s are lousy. And this is much better quality, much higher end than MP3. And they're creating a Pono store where the music's going to be sold at a much higher quality file size. And it's called Pono, P-O-N-O. So they did a little promotional video. They popped up last week, and and they were playing Kashmir. One of the songs was Kashmir, which leads you to speculate. Which leads us to speculate that the remaster soon coming out will be released as standalone. As it currently stands, high def files are only available in the Ultra Uber Get Out Your Wallet box set. Call it the American Express set. It's, the one, it's the records and the CDs and the books and whatever else. And they include a high definition download, very high quality file. But what this commercial hints at is that the files will be available on the Pono store for the Pono device, that they will be sold at some point as standalone high-def files. That's what you can read into on that. Of course, they may just be, go buy the super-duper box set and those files will work on the Pono. That may be the case. But if you're an audiophile, the Pono is quite exciting. I think for most people, I don't know. I don't want to say I don't think I would be interested, because you may hear it and be blown away. You may hear it and go, "Oh, yeah, okay, now I get it." By the same token, I got enough MP3s that I don't want to go. Really don't want to go rebuying this stuff again. Oh, I want to retire in 4 years, not buy more music. In New York City, and I don't know the gallery. There's art galleries having a photography exhibit of the work of Bob Gruen. Bob Gruen's famous for quite a few. It's rock photography, by the way. And his most famous shot would be John Lennon in the shirt that says New York City, white shirt that says New York City. However, he did capture Led Zeppelin a number of times, and there is some pictures, and they will be, framed, high quality prints, etc., etc. They'll not just a picture. They may be a picture you've seen, but you've probably never seen them this good. This is the let's say these are the Pono music files to your MP3s that you downloaded from iTunes. In terms of what you've seen previously printed in magazines and what you're going to see on the wall at the exhibit. So if you're in New York City, look up Bob Gruen, Gruen, and the exhibit's on for like the next month, and it's probably going to be a good one. I wish I was going. I think I would pop into that. That really looks. But if you just look up Bob Gruen rock photography exhibit, and you'll get to the gallery, and they do have an online PDF, the magazine for the showing, which is so you can scroll through it and see all the pictures at least. And speaking of pictures, speaking of that sort of thing, Lisa Robinson, who was a big-ish time rock writer in the 70s, is doing a book, releasing a book later this month called There Goes Gravity. I've been in contact with Penguin Canada. I got a copy coming, a review copy. So sometime, hopefully it gets fast. Sometimes, they say they'll send a review copy and it takes, I've had never received them. I've had it take like 6 weeks and I've had it be there the next day. And they've FedExed it, I don't know what I'm getting. I really don't. But I presume in the next couple of weeks I will be, she was very quick to get back to me, very happy to send a book to me. So that leads me to believe that it'll get here, that it's in the mail now, sort of thing, in the mail today. So next week, probably sometime, I'm getting it, which means probably in sometime in the next couple of episodes, I suspect I'll be reviewing it. I'll be talking about the book. Lisa Robinson toured with Led Zeppelin. My personal Lisa Robinson story is in 1977, August of that year, we drove from where we live up in southern Ontario, Toronto, basically, to Florida, to Disney World, and Clearwater. I was trying to think of it there. Clearwater, just on the other side of on the Gulf. And unlike nowadays, where you have DVD players and minivans full of all sorts of space, and DVD players back there, and whatnot, and your own personal headsets and an iPad with movies on it or whatever, and 1,000 books and 1,000 magazines and all that sort of thing. We were allowed to bring like 3 magazines. There's 3 of us in the back seat of a Gran Torino, I believe it was, and 3 boys. I was 14, my other brother was 17, and then my youngest guy would be 8, so he's small. He got stuck in the middle, of course, all the time. And the hump, remember the humps where the transmission ran? So, I had these 3 rock magazines. I think it's a Cream and 2 Hit Paraders, I think is what I had, if memory serves. And the 2 Hit Paraders had Lisa Robinson on the road with Led Zeppelin, for 2 episodes in a row, because beginning of the tour, end of the tour sort of thing. And I devoured those. By the time the first day was over, you'd read each magazine 2 or 3 times. By the time we were in Florida, I'd read each magazine. I had virtually memorized each magazine. I still remember, one of them had Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers' first album, talking about them before it was even released. So when Tom Petty came out, I kind of knew really well who he was. Other one had story on the Runaways, complete with some fabulous pictures that a 14-year-old boy just really liked. But yeah, the Led Zeppelins and the pictures. And I actually had for a long time, I had a T-shirt that got painted, hand-painted T-shirt that got done when we were in Florida. And it was a picture of Jimmy Page from the 77 tour out of one of those magazines. And those stories were penned by Lisa Robinson. So I'm quite excited to read this book and see what she's got to say, because in that car at that time, your mind would wander, and how do you what's it really like touring with a band like this? And of course, I would have had a very myopic view of it, but anyway, that's coming. Lisa Robinson, There Goes Gravity, and I think it's April 20th or 24th, around there it's released. And I will have more information on the blog in the next week or so. But it is available for pre-order. If you're going to order it through Amazon, go click on I got links for all the Zeppelin stuff on the side. Go click on it, and then search Lisa Robinson. Buy the book that way. Drops a couple of pennies into the jar here. Just does, it helps. Anyway, and by the way, I'm sorry about that. I kind of gotten to the point where I throwing those in where I see it, but never been comfortable pitching for money. It was bred out of me by my mother very early on, actually, and I hate to do it. I feel just awful, but I'm trying to steel myself to do it a bit, just to say. So, but feel free to ignore it, as I guess is. I'll not continue on that conversation. Anyway, and finally, Dave Lewis, Type It Loose, number 37. I've been talking about Dave the last couple of weeks because I'm trying to get him on the show, and it looks like I'll get him on sometime in the next couple of weeks. And He's ready to go with episode number 37, and he's selling it for almost half off cover price. Almost half off, he says. £3 is his price now with shipping. It's up there, and if you're here in the Americas, it's still going to cost you $12.50 to get it. So it's not by any stretch of the imagination, dirt cheap. It's all shipping. It kills you, the shipping. And I'm sure he hates it because he's not making a penny on the shipping, right? That's all stamps. But you can get it for half off cover price, $12.50. It would probably be about $15 instead, And here's some stuff. He got a lot of stuff in it. Guide to the first 3 Led Zeppelin reissues with key insight and background info into what is in store. Led Zeppelin early 69, Led Zeppelin early 75, Jimmy Page's 70, Minibus Pimps, Cloud to Ground, a Glenn Hughes interview, some stuff on Robert Plant, and there is other stuff in there. And if you go to rambleonradio.com, I have a link for him. And no, I don't get any money if you buy through that link. But if you do buy in the next week or two, when you're buying, there is a kind of an option to leave a comment or something for him. Let him know you heard about it on this. Let him know. I'm convinced after listening to Ramble On Radio. That way it's easier when I want to talk. When I call him and say let's do an interview, he's going, oh yeah, because last month 6 people bought my magazine because they heard it on there. I'm definitely going to talk to this guy. That's the sort of stuff that helps make this better. And I know I go on about that a bit. I apologize. That's kind of inside baseball-y stuff, and I do apologize. But it needs to be mentioned. So that's it. That's got it in just under half an hour, and that's not bad. Looking forward to the next couple, maybe if not next week, the next 2 after that with Lisa Robinson and hopefully Dave Lewis. And I'm expecting this month also to get James Dillon on. Once he's done, keep your eye open for him having completed the John Bonham drawing, the pencil drawing that he's doing. And go to jamesdillon.com. Be sure to read the wonderful, absolutely superb biography of James Dillon by some guy called Brian Gardner. Never heard of him, but his biography is there. All right, so this is Brian Gardner. Yeah, go to James Dillon's site. He's got some the Robert Plant pictures still for sale, and he's almost done the John Bonham. And when he's done the John Bonham, he's agreed to come on the show and talk about it, which hopefully will get. Looks like it's going to get close to when they head out for some dates in May. So we will have lots to talk about with him. So I'm looking forward to the next couple of shows. Hopefully it all rolls somewhere along the lines of what we want. And thank you for listening. Thank you for taking the time to listen. Thank you to everybody who's followed me on Spreaker. Thank you to everybody who's left I keep getting emails from people and they mention, by the way, I left a review. So thank you for doing so. Thank you for leaving a review. It helps. That's all I can say is it helps. And that's it for Ramble On Radio, episode 54. Check out rambleonradio.com for notes on this week's podcast, Led Zeppelin news and reviews, and, of course, any links mentioned in today's podcast. Follow Ramble On Radio. Follow me on Facebook, Google+, and at Ramble On Blog on Twitter. Fair warning, I really don't do Google+ very much, so it's if that's your big thing, you may be disappointed at how little activity goes on there. But Facebook and Twitter, I'm around a fair bit. You can subscribe to Ramble On Radio through iTunes, as I just mentioned, leave a review, listen on Spreaker, and be sure to follow me on Spreaker. That's Spreaker with an R. And check it out at I Am Brian Dammit on YouTube. Thank you for listening to Ramble On Radio. And I will talk to you next week.
Switch off the internet.